Hey everybody, welcome to Eternal Brews. My name is Pojo, and we're getting a little bit of master grinding done today. Just playing around with some pretty powerful archetypes. We haven't really talked about Praxis tokens yet on this channel, so I thought I'd go into, or at least not since set 2. I thought I'd go into the current Praxis tokens deck, and we're going to go ahead and do some silly things with it. So this is Praxis tokens, token gesture with a little bit of green. We're running Stand Together and Genetrix Irel the Fourth as our splash, using Amber, Acolyte, and Trailmaker to make sure that we fix our justice so that we can get Genetrix out and have a little bit of fun with her. This is a little bit different from the Praxis tokens list in a couple of ways. Not too many major things are changed, but this is sort of the idea behind the deck is, of course, that we play a bunch of small little token units like Grenadin Drone, Assembly Line, Amber Acolyte, Teacher of Humility. If you're wondering what a token is, it is often referred to any sort of created card, so a card that is created by another card. And yeah, we are just trying to basically make a bunch of little dudes all at once, and then send them in with Xenan Obelisk and any sort of big buffs that we can manage. You can throw Rally into this deck, but we're using Stand Together and Genetrix herself to see if we can push a little bit of damage on top of our Overwhelm units like Marisen Disciple Sandcrawlers, the Flying Humbug Swarm, and Ixtun Merchant, our Overwhelm Market card. Normally you would use, I believe, Aurelian Merchant, but I like Ixtun Merchant because it's a little bit more aggressive and it allows us to push a little bit further while also allowing us to pick up cards like Boar and Purify and Claw the First Dragon as well. Moment of Creation has been a little bit underwhelming in this deck, so we might find a replacement for that one in the market, but for the moment, yeah, this is a pretty good market setup, and this is the deck I think is pretty solid, so we're going to talk about it. Alright, so yeah, first off, the straight up early plan. Let's go ahead and take a look. Grenadin Drone playing the early Grenadins, making sure that we have lots of little units. These guys tend to be 2/2s or 3/3s with obelisks, and they're really good targets for Stand Together because you get a lot of stats out of them. Teacher of Humility, good aggressive 2-drop, tends to be somewhat of a shutdown for opponents who aren't ready for it and forces them to spend things like Torch and Purify early on, which then makes it so that it's easier to get other tokens out later on. So yeah, just a good aggressive 2-drop. This card fills most aggro slots in time very well. Trailmaker gets us the power and the influence that we need to go nice and aggressive while also allowing us to pick up cards like Genetrix and, of course, Stand Together. This is the splash card. This is the card where in Praxis you might not run as much of this, but the ramp is very, very good for it and helps out quite a bit. Amber Acolyte also fixing power and making sure that we have more consistent power draws. This is another good card for fetching Justice Sigils. Ixtun Merchant, swapping for cards in the market, sometimes even just playing as a blank 3/3 with Overwhelm. One of the best targets for Genetrix Irel to sort of beef up with the +4/+4 bonus. Irel herself, of course, giving the extra maximum power to help out with Xenan Obelisk, while also giving a huge bonus to a small token and sort of making the board a little bit more uneven. A lot of times the main problem with these types of Praxis tokeny decks is that you play something on turn 4 or turn 3 and then you get Hailstormed and you get blown out. We want Genetrix here so that we can get a really, really good aggressive turn in, and then if a Hailstorm drops down, Genetrix dies, but we get to keep the tokens and we get to start buffing them with other things. This is sort of the place where I think Irel really shines, is any sort of deck that wants both a lot of power and a lot of little tokens. As we talked about in our card breakdowns, we've done this with a little bit of a greedy deck, but I've actually really liked her so far in the tokens deck, and we'll see how well she plays. Currently I'm running only 2 copies. I don't have my 3rd copy yet. My internet died on Thursday, so I didn't get to get the copy, but yeah, we'll be pretty excited to play around with her a little bit and see if she's good in the deck, and thus far she's been behaving just fine. Marisen's Disciple makes tokens, also makes solutions. Scorpions to deal with really big stuff, Locusts to fly over opponents' heads, and Sand Crawlers to give targets for Genetrix and make sure that we can push damage and stats against the best types of units. Marisen's Disciple's been a really, really good staple card in token stacks since the very beginning of set 1, and that's certainly not changing now. Heart of the Vault at the top, you can probably run like 2 to 3 of these. You don't need to go super heavy on them if you want to make a cheaper list. But yeah, at 6, this card is generally just the best value that you can possibly get, and even in a tokens deck, you feel really good about playing it. Xenan Obelisk, of course, the bread and butter card. This card fixes for everything and gets the tokens where they want to be. Torch and Purify fix for early problems. Assembly Line makes even more tokens. Stand Together allows us to, of course, beef everything up, stop harsh rules and hailstorms, and get us into a situation where we just get like a really, really aggressive board going very, very quickly. This card is great and often is, I actually prefer it to Rally, of course, but we do have to get certain fixers in to make sure that we can get the green in. Finally, Humbug Humbug Swarm makes flyers, which are really, really nice, and the tokens themselves are pretty solid. As to the market, we're doing Boar and Purify. Boar to fix for other relics, Purify to deal with cards like Sandstorm Titan if we want to fly across. Claw of the First Dragon, one of my favorite 7-drops in Praxis tokens, now being sort of consigned to the market because we're not running nearly as much ramp in the deck, but both Claw and Moment of Creation create a huge amount of units and create a comeback mechanism for you that can be really, really helpful. Moment of Creation, I think, is probably the card that's most likely to get cycled out here. If we figure out what we want to do with that in the course of these games, we'll provide a different solution. But I do actually really like it here. It makes very, very big token units and can be really, really solid. Another option, and actually, yeah, let's swap that in while we're talking about it. We're just going to use Arcana Monitor, because Arcana Monitor is a nice red buff source that happens to be pretty effective at making sure that we can do a lot of damage, and it's in fire. So yeah, we'll put that into the market instead, and we're going to go ahead and show off some games and show you how the deck works. See you guys in just a moment. Cheers. All right, here we are up against Wynead 6. Opener has double time and a teacher, so I think we're pretty happy with it. Probably just play Crest of Progress here, then follow up with teacher. We can play Grenadin Drone after with Crest of Glory. What are we up to, Wynead? What's the deck? Yeah, so we're looking okay. Crest of Wisdom here pulls through some amount of stuff. Nothing too crazy going on. Just looking for his next play. Crest of Impulse for me is second fire source. It's nice to have extra power sources, but I think I want gas, so we'll go ahead and toss it away. I do need 3 fire sources at some point, but I'm not in a huge hurry to get them until I see Heart of the Vault, so another Crest of Impulse anyways. Oh, I messed up there. That's fine. We'll play the Grenadin Drone and play the teacher next turn. Slightly more protected teacher. Okay, yeah, Crest of Progress cycles away. I'm going to say Heart of the Vault to the bottom. Attack for 2 here. And we will play the Teacher of Humility.
You're a sad bunch.
This is opening myself up to Hailstorm pretty well, but I think this deck might not have Hailstorm and more likely run something like Harsh Rule, which we've got the stand together for, so we'll see what happens. Crest of Wisdom, that's fine. He's still got 3 power open, so if we see the Hailstorm, then we're in trouble. If we don't, then I think we're in very, very good shape. We don't have to play anything for the next turn. We've got the stand together. Ixtun Merchant trades pretty well. Crest of Impulse is not a card I need. Just keep pulling those power to the bottom.
Think you can escape me?
And we'll just stand together here. Might as well get our Aegises on. Okay, so Ixtun Merchant is going to trade away a power for some sort of gas. I've got a lot of power right now, so probably Claw of the First Dragon makes the most sense. Arcana Monitor could be okay. Looks like we're up against some sort of Chalice deck, which is pretty good to get Teacher in on. I will go ahead and swing in for as much as I can. And he's got the face Aegis, so he's no longer all that uncomfortable with getting hit. We're just going to grab ourselves a Claw. Boar is pretty nice too, but I think here we're just going to try to overwhelm the Chalice deck. Amber Acolyte. Gaining a lot of life here, but hasn't played his Chalices yet. Aurelian Merchant actually picks out the Chalice, so we do need to do some work this turn to get ourselves in a position to deal with it. I think basically what we're going to do is be attacking as much as possible and just pushing damage. If he wants to do his whole Chalice setup, I think we'll be okay. Heart of the Vault needs a fire source, but that's okay. We'll figure something out. Go ahead and attack here. Get as much damage in as possible. Play our assembly line. Okay, all of the blocks. Gets rid of a couple of good units, which is useful. Assembly line makes the board a little bit wider. These camels are getting a little bit out of control. We do need to actually deal with that 0-3 before we get into too much trouble, but I think we're okay at the moment. Are we going to see Chalice here, or is he going to try to do something like Harsh Roll? That's another Aurelian Merchant. So, another blocker. Shush silences Ixtun Merchant, which we don't care about at all. Just play our Time Source, Claw, kill either the 0-3 or the 1-4. I think the Camel needs to die first. And attack with both of these, but we'll actually leave the rest back for the moment. Just get our push on. Crest of Progress here. He can do something like Channel to me, which would be pretty rough. But if that happens, I get a bunch of tokens, so I'm not feeling too unhappy. We're not particularly surprised to see Crystalline Chalice. He can't actually exhaust here, because he can't lose blockers. So he loses one. Crest of Progress happens. Grenadin Drone is not a fire source. I think I'm actually looking for fire sources pretty badly right now. So we'll just attack in with everything. Cerso's Choice, kind of a interesting little channel effect there. That does get rid of his Aurelian merchants, but we're pretty in control of this. I've still got the Chalice, I've still got the channel. End of the story doesn't stop me from pushing through on him, so here we go. Humbug Swarm sets things up. And this is the nice thing about having a Claw in the sideboard. You get some sort of relic proofing against, you know, any sort of major control. I could just pick up like a boar or something, but I think we're actually all good. So yeah, pretty solid game. Alright, here we are up against Dylanson, and looks like our opener is Crest, Marisen's Disciple. I'm going to redraw here, see what we can do. Yeah, this is a little bit better. Trailmaker allows us to get some fire sources for Ixtun Merchant. I'd like to see some undepleted power at some point here, but I've actually got all the cards that I want in my hand, so yeah, this looks pretty good. So what's up, Dylanson? What are we doing? Throwing back some cards. Let's find an undepleted fire source. Nice. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, Granite Waystone Trailmaker gets us second fire source if we need it, which we don't. But definitely probably does get a second fire source anyways. I could Crest of Progress as well. No, we definitely want to play Trailmaker first. So Ixtun Merchant is going to allow us to trade in for some goodies, but we can also just stay put if we need to. I think overall I'm pretty happy with this. We'll grab the fire source so that we have better Waystones and just a better chance of getting to like 4th power. Temple Scribe is certainly a card that's going to stand in the way here. And Humbug Swarm, not a card I'm particularly attached to. I think Grenadin Drone here doesn't really seem very important, so let's go ahead and Ixtun Merchant. And I'm actually going to throw away Humbug Swarm for something like Praxis Banner or Purify. Arcana Monitor works too, but Praxis Banner is definitely the most interesting card for me just because it allows us to keep playing power and play Obelisk early. Both of which are things that I would rather like to do right now. So let's play the Obelisk here, or we could attack for 3 and play Marisen's Disciple. I think I rather like that, yeah. So we'll play Marisen's Disciple here. That'll give us a 3/3 Overwhelm. Another good card for dealing with those Blister Sting Wasps. We've got Stand Together available. Our opponent is playing Shadows, so we could expect some cards like Extract on 3, but right now we're not in a particularly big, worrisome area. I think we just go for Obelisk here. Beef everything up so that it can go across. Ixtun Merchant plus Stand Together looks like a really good deal, so we'll probably trade a power for that next turn. And grab something big, either Arcana Monitor or Humbug Swarm, or, well, we can't grab Humbug Swarm. Arcana Monitor or Claw feels most likely. We could pick up Purify if we feel like there's some threat that needs to be dealt with.
A customer.
Alright, my opponent does not have the capacity to deal with that, it looks like, so he's just going to call it good, and we'll go ahead and see what we can do with the next one. Alright, a bad Magic player 100 is our opponent, and the redraw here looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and redraw and see what we can find. Yeah, 1 power is not good enough, so we definitely want to look for 2. If I find a undepleted time source here, I can play Teacher on the next setup. If I find any undepleted source, I can play Trailmaker. And Trailmaker can grab Justice, which makes Genetrix a possibility, or we could just end up playing Amber Acolyte a little bit later in. Okay, so a little bit more Xenan. I haven't seen that much Xenan on the ladder lately. It's kind of interesting to see it now. Amber Waystone means that we're dropping the obvious teacher onto. And it looks like this is a Xenan Lifeforce deck. This does pretty well against tokens, I think. Definitely has a decent amount of stuff that you can pull. Ian the Abductor stands in the way of Teacher and a lot of good tokens, and Katra can just completely blow the whole board up, so yeah, he's definitely got the Ian here. I don't think there's any reason to play around it. Let's just attack into it and trade.
You will feed the darkness.
Take this!
Alright, Trailmaker grabs us a Justice, and Crest of Impulse digs for Obelisk. I think I'll take that. Amber Acolyte next, I think, although Obelisk is also quite good. Yeah, Amber Acolyte here grabs a Justice Source. We'll play that, and now I can Obelisk if I want to, or I can play Marisen's Disciple. I could have picked up a Fire for Heart of the Vault, but it's better to have the Justice here for Genetrix because that's just a little bit more aggressive. At this point, Obelisk feels pretty good. So too does Genetrix, because that trades with one of his big 1/3 units here. And I do kind of want to get more stuff dead before Katra comes down. There are a couple of plays. There are a lot of good ones, actually. Humbug Swarm is not really going to deal all that well. Marisen's Disciple makes an Overwhelm unit, which I think is the most interesting. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Grab ourselves a Sandcrawler, and we will just Obelisk next turn and swing in then. Aurelian Merchant, that's pretty rough. I could pick up any number of good big things. We're going to Obelisk here and swing with basically everything. It's possible we swing with Trailmaker, and it's possible we don't. Pushing damage here does mean that we get more trades, but I think we'll actually just stay back. Okay. As suspected, that's a decent amount of nasties down, and we get 2 Grenadins here. Humbug, Swarm, and Heart of the Vault both look pretty good. Mask of Torment. Oh, okay, so it's Mask of Torment control stuff, which is a little bit different than the other things we were expecting to run into. Here I can use Genetrix, or I can just swing, and I think I'm actually going to just swing. We're going to grab a Fire Source here. Swing with everything, and if he blocks with the 3/2s, we're just going to stand together. Cool. So that's a lot of his ramp gone. He's still got Sanctuary Priests for pretty awesome stuff, but I've got a pile of Aegis tokens, and Genetrix is going to come down next, so I feel pretty good about life.
Be welcome, friend.
Becky's a scary customer. We'll go ahead and play Heart of the Vault here kills Sanctuary Priest, which I think is probably the most effective tactic. Genetrix is pretty good too, but yeah, this looks right. Keep it nice and aggressive. Force Becky into a trade. And then Grenadin drone here gets us to a decent amount of stuff. We're just really, really loaded on the board, and Mask of Torment's not doing what it needs to do.
It's written right here.
Temple Scribe has a little extra power. He'll probably have End of the Line, which is a pretty good answer to tokens in general, but I don't think he's going to get to it. I think we're just a little too fast for him here. And yep, sure enough, down he goes. Alright, one more round. I wasn't really feeling very happy with the Arcana monitor in the games that we've been playing, so I changed out the market tech a little bit. We've added in a Sindok Rage Incarnate. We're going to be fiddling around with that a little bit to see what we like about it or don't like about it. Looks like the fire time here plus the Grenadin drone looks good, so yeah, overall I'm feeling pretty comfy with this. Dumanu is our opponent.
Don't look down.
He's got a journey guide straight up to start, so we'll go ahead and just throw a Grenadin drone in response and see what happens. Trailmaker here gets me either time or fire. I don't think I need to go for justice here. We want to try and get the Heart of the Vault influence together as soon as possible. But yeah, overall we're feeling pretty happy about our results. Amber Acolyte looks like a pretty good card, especially if we get everything together with our Trailmaker. Since we're definitely seeing multiple Heart of the Vaults, we're definitely going to go for multiple fire and time sources. I think this time around it's going to be time. Attack for 2, get 1 damage in. The value. Amber Acolyte will get a fire source as well. That'll get us Xenan Obelisk on the next turn. So we'll probably have to do some relatively poor blocks, but I think we'll feel okay about that. I might just throw a 1-1 in front of this and then Obelisk up. Or I could actually just draw the extra card. We don't really draw a ton of extra cards ourselves, so it doesn't hurt too much to trade with this. That's an interesting question. Do we want another power here? If I decide to just take it, then... I mean, it's not like he's going to force us to draw extra cards. We do have the 2 Heart of the Vaults, which will discount something. Like, it doesn't hurt here to get hit. I think we're going to feel pretty good about this, and it might draw us the extra power we need. Okay. 6 cost assembly line, but there's the power. Awesome. So play our Obelisk. We're looking good now. I've got some 2/2s to swing with, and a 3/2 as well. And I could trade back if I wanted to. I think just attack with these 2/2s for the moment. Okay. Humbug Swarm happens on 5, or Heart of the Vault, either way. My opponent could be playing any number of interesting things. I don't think he's doing like Shimmer Pack shenanigans. This looks more like Crown with Journey Guide. So, combo wombos, ahoy. We'll definitely want to try to be aggressive and force as much damage across as possible. Aurelian Merchant, that's a card we want to torch or deal with in some other way. Humbug Swarm feels pretty playable here, but I could also attack in and Heart of the Vault if I get the power together. What's he gonna Merchant for? Probably Attachment Destruction, which would make certain cards pretty bad for me. Granite Waystone? Okay, so that's the power I need. Cool. We'll just attack for 2 here, maybe 3. I think just 2 seems fine. Heart of the Vault kills the teacher. We draw our own teacher, and it's a 3-cost teacher, but that's okay. And yeah, I've got a 7/7 and an upcoming 6/6. Okay, he Aurelian Merchant for Crown, which definitely makes sense considering he's trying to get big cockroaches out. We'll have to push pretty hard here and make sure that we get as much damage in as humanly possible. Swing for multiples here. Play the heart. That gets us a 2-cost Grenadin drone. Or actually it's a 3-cost Grenadin drone because it got discounted. So yeah, we got some expensive stuff, but I think we're still feeling pretty happy about our results. That's 14. We have to push pretty hard to make sure that we break through the Crown. But if we get an Ixtun Merchant, we can pick a boar out. Cockroaches with Bond, that's pretty scary. He's only got 3 of them? He's got 2 of them. Because he's twinning Ritual the Cockroach, so that's 2. Uh-oh. He has some blank ones, though. Okay, so yeah, definitely a pretty good deal. Let's go ahead and swing in with these 2 7/7s. He's got 1 Roach left. And I could trade a teacher to the market, or I could trade something like Humbug Swarm. I think here we probably go for... we might just go for a bunch of Grenadin. I've got that Sindok Rage Incarnate in the setup, which does cost 2 right now. I'm pretty into it. Let's ditch the expensive teacher. Oh, wait, no, we don't want to grab Sindok, because Sindok will cost 3 more, so a card like Boar makes the most sense. It's pretty expensive, though. Purify, Claw, all good options. Praxis Banner is pretty good as well. I think Praxis Banner kind of makes the most sense since it gets us up a little bit in power. So we almost made a mistake there, but we're all good. So we'll go ahead and play ourselves an assembly line, get a bunch of little blockers, and get ready to push. Owlhead Mountbreaker doubles the damage of many a Grenadin. Not a Grenafriend, to be sure. Killing the Roach is pretty important. We want to get through Owlhead as fast as possible. Okay. There's a couple of different options here. The pushiest ones are Humbug Swarm. If I swing with everything, that leads me down a pretty bad set of blocks. But I get some good damage in. 7/7 probably gets... Yeah, so we could probably get Humbug Swarm off of that. I think that's what we're going to go for. We're going to push all in. Like, he has to do shenanigans with Owlhead, so we're going to see a double block there. And yeah, he spooks a little bit, which means that we get to push a bunch of damage, and we only lose 1 unit to that. And now I can Assembly Line again, or Humbug Swarm, which Humbug Swarm is basically lethal. Marisen's Disciple plus Teacher is a little bit more aggressive, so we're going to go for that. And I'd say Scorpions and Sandcrawlers, I'd want to go Locusts here.
You're a sad bunch.
Just because it's a little bit more damage to be pushing over the top. Alright, let's force that Clockroach down. Oh, wow, I found a second Owlhead. I guess he didn't have a last Roach in hand? Okay, so yeah, looks like we pushed through. And yeah, that's a good example of, like, not of this deck in particular, but an example of, like, what you can do with Teacher of Humility, like how you can play around it. Like, in this case, we just felt like it was not a big risk to get hit by it, and it did end up costing us a little bit, but I think overall it was actually to our benefit to be playing those power on a consistent basis and just always have a threat down. So, felt pretty solid. That was a good game. All right. Alright, that about does it for today. This is where the list landed after all of the tuning. We decided to cut 2 Heart of the Vaults for 2 Praxis Displacers, moved the Sindok into the market, and yeah, overall I'm feeling pretty happy with how the deck is running. So this is pretty standard Praxis tokens fare apart from the green, but it's a little bit more complicated and a little bit more interesting to me, and Genetrix has just been a pile of fun in the deck, so I'm very, very excited by that as well. And it was good to show off a Praxis tokens list in general. So hope you guys had fun with that, and I will see you again for more Eternal Brews soon. Next time. Cheers.